Part 1. The Bedroll was never just yours. Imagine this. It's past midnight on the open prairie. Winds howling low, stars blinking overhead, and the fires burn down to glowing orange guts. You've ridden for 14 hours, eaten cold beans, and your legs feel like wood. So you crawl into your Bedroll, your one place of peace, warmth, and rest, except you're not alone. Because that Bedroll, it already has tenants, and they don't care that your name's on the saddle. They moved in weeks ago. They don't pay rent, they just bite, crawl, burrow, and feast, canvas, sweat, and secrets. A cowboy's Bedroll wasn't some plush sleeping bag. It was a bundle of canvas wrapped around a couple of blankets, maybe horsehair stuffing if he was lucky, but more often, it was soaked in old sweat, soaked in dust, soaked in rain from a storm 5 towns back. Some never got washed, others hadn't been fully dried. In years, cowboys folded them tight, strapped them to the saddle, unrolled them again that night, over and over, day after day, and whatever crawled in, lice, mites, beetles, even mice, often stayed in. If the Bedroll looked thick, it wasn't just wool. Sometimes it was alive. The itch that wouldn't quit most loyal Bedroll roommates, lice. They clung to shirt collars, crawled into blankets, laid eggs in stitching seams. You could spend the whole day scratching your neck, your back, your belly. They didn't care if it was hot, cold, dry, or storming. As long as you were warm and too tired to fight back, they feasted. Some cowboys used tobacco dust to choke 'em out. Others rubbed vinegar in their clothes. But on the trail, there wasn't time for treatment. Only complaints. And Bedrolls, perfect breeding grounds, warm, dark, and filled with human skin flakes. One cowboy claimed he rolled his lice up at night like firewood, and they were still waiting. When he woke up, fleas. The acrobat thieves of lice were the squatters, fleas were the jumpy thieves. These little demons loved Bedrolls, especially. When dogs or cattle passed through camp, fleas didn't just bite. They launched. You'd feel the tiniest pinch on your leg. Then zip, they were gone, only to strike again somewhere worse. They'd live in the folds of the blanket, nestled between layers of hide or old saddle wool. Some Bedrolls would snap when unrolled, sending out a flurry of tiny dark specks. That wasn't dust. That was your night company getting ready for round 2. You didn't sleep. You negotiated. Bedroll mold, a Western perfumey. A cowboy once said, "If it smells like bread, it's probably trying to eat you." Bedrolls left damp too long turned into mobile fungus farms. Mold would grow deep in the layers, not always visible, but always present. It carried a damp, sour smell that mixed with sweat and smoke into something uniquely frontier. And when you unrolled it at night, that first wave of earthy funk slapped you like a boot to the jaw. Some cowboys claimed it helped them fall asleep. Others swore it made their teeth itch. There was no Febreze, just fire smoke. Some hung their rolls over the flames. Others said that only made the mold mad. Meet the Bedroll. Michemis didn't wait for invitation. They chewed through the outer canvas, built nests in the folds, sometimes gave birth right under your back. One cowboy reportedly rolled over a nest and spent the next hour chasing a pink baby mouse out of his boot. They loved crumbs, bits of old jerky, a forgotten biscuit. Some cowboys stuffed food in their Bedroll for safekeeping and woke up to twitching noses and gnawed holes. In winter, mice added warmth. In summer, they added noise. Some men kept them as unintentional pets. Others just tried not to crush them. The uninvited guests you never saw. There were other things, too. Tiny beetles that liked warmth, spiders that curled into blanket corners, a cricket or two that chirped all night from inside the padding like some twisted lullaby. Most weren't dangerous, but when something tickled your face in the dark, it didn't matter if it was harmless. You bolted upright, slapped the air, cursed into the wind, and sometimes ended up tangled in your own gear. One man woke up with a beetle in his mouth. Another swallowed something that kicked on the way down. They both burned their Bedrolls by sunrise. Coming up next, in part 2, we dig deeper into the rot. You'll find out how cowboys slept in mold, sweat, and dried animal grease. Why some Bedrolls stank worse than the outhouse, and how a few unlucky souls discovered entire bug colonies nested in the seams. Because out on the frontier, Bedtime wasn't about dreams. It was about survival. And sometimes, scratching your way through the night. Part 2, stench, rot, and the things that Maveddi say. You could smell a cowboy's bedroll before you saw his horse. And if you didn't, that meant you were upwind. These things weren't just filthy. They were ecosystems, living, breathing, crawling tapestries of sweat, grease, dust, dead skin, tobacco crumbs, and other stuff best left unnamed. Some cowboys called them sleep sacks, others called them mobile plagues. But everybody agreed on one thing. If you were brave enough to unroll one near a fire, you'd better warn the men downwind. The smell wasn't the worst part. Let's start with scent. You take one dirty canvas sheet, fold it over to wool blankets soaked in 5 weeks of body heat. Add a sprinkle of trail dust, a splash of horse sweat, some leftover beans from 3 towns ago, and roll it up tight for 12 hours a day in 100-degree heat. Then unroll it. The result was something between old cheese, burnt leather, and wet dog that died under the floorboards. It didn't just linger, it clung to your hands, to your hair, to your dignity. One cowpoke said he'd rather sleep in the river. Rotten padding and ghost stains. Some bedrolls weren't just dirty, they were decomposing. Canvas would tear. Inner stuffing, if there was any, would go soft with mildew. You'd see dark rings in the fabric, some shaped like watermarks, others like someone had lost a fight with a jar of lard. Stains didn't come out. Ever. They weren't just part of the bedroll, they were the bedroll. Some old-timers believed in rolling it right every time. They thought if you aligned the seams just so, you'd avoid waking up with your face on the dampest part. Others just gave up and slept on their coats. The bug colonies that claimed territory. By the time you reached week 4 of a cattle drive, your bedroll wasn't yours anymore. It was theirs. Beetles had burrowed into the seams. Silverfish darted under the edge when light hit them. Some corners moved when you weren't looking, but only slightly, like the fabric was breathing. There was one confirmed case of a man who woke up with a centipede crawling across his chest. He never rolled that bedroll again. Burned it, borrowed someone else's, then got fleas anyway. Saddle grease, lard, and bacon blankets in a desperate bid to make things better. Some cowboys made them worse. They treated their blankets with grease, saddle oil, lard, even bacon fat, to make them more water-resistant. It worked until it rained. The fat soaked into the fibers, trapping moisture like a sponge from the underworld. Then came the flies, then came the smell, then came the rodents. One guy tried to dry his bedroll over a cook fire. It dripped. No one ate for 2 hours. Living with it because you had no choice. No one on the frontier liked their bedroll. They just needed it. It kept you off the dirt, away from the wind, and slightly warmer than freezing. That was enough. Some cowboys added dried sage or pine needles to try to freshen the stink. Others sprinkled coffee grounds inside. One man stitched dried citrus peels into his seams, where he got citrus out west. No one asked. It never truly helped, but it gave them the illusion of cleanliness. And out there, that was something. Sharing was not an option. You never, ever asked to borrow another man's bedroll. That was like asking to wear his socks after a river crossing. Even if a man was dying, he'd rather sleep on the dirt than slide into someone else's canvas cocoon. The mix of body oil, tobacco, and possibly unidentifiable insects wasn't something you casually passed around. If you saw a bedroll left behind, you didn't touch it. You saluted it, then burned it. Coming up next, in part 3, we'll explore the night horrors, crawling things that whispered, mice that nested in your blankets, and what happened when you woke up itchy in all the wrong places. We'll also talk about cowboy bedroll, rituals, from fireproofing to stomping before sleep, and why some men wore spurs into their bed just to be safe. Because when the sun went down, the real frontier wasn't outside your bedroll, it was inside. Part 3, nightmares under the blanket. When the fire dimmed low and the prairie went still, cowboys didn't fear the dark, they feared what moved in it. Because bedtime on the frontier didn't mean rest, it meant crawling into a bundle of canvas that might already be full of tiny feet, sharp teeth, or twitchy legs. And once that roll closed behind your back, you weren't just lying on the ground. You were trapped in a moving, scratching, twitching micro-jungle. Some called it the twitch hour. Others, bunk with the bugs, the things that moved. When you didn't, it usually started with a tickle, maybe on your leg, maybe your back, or worse, your face. You'd brush it off, then feel another, then two more. By then it was too late. Your bedroll had come alive. The culprits ranged from beetles to crickets to little prairie centipedes that felt like walking safety pins. Some were harmless, others bit, but none of them were invited. And the worst part, if you slapped too hard, you crushed something. Then, you spent the rest of the night wondering what it used to be. Mice. The unpaying guests' prairie mice weren't shy. They chewed their way into anything warm, including your blankets. If your bedroll had a hole, and they all did eventually, it became home. You'd unroll it at night, only to find a tiny pile of chewed leaves or torn shirt scraps tucked neatly inside. That wasn't trash. That was a mouse nest. Some cowboys woke to the sound of tiny feet scurrying under their ribs. Others found baby mice beneath them. One famously slept through an entire night while Mouse stole half his jerky from inside his pocket. He only noticed at breakfast. The prairie blanket ritual cowboys learned quick. Never trust a rolled bedroll. You had to stomp it. First, that became a nightly ritual. Lay it flat, stomp it, slap it, shake it like a rug. Then, and only then, crawl in. Some even laid it out early and let the sun bake out the bad. Others smoked it with cedar or sage to drive out the squatters. Did it work? Sometimes. But mostly it just stirred up whatever was already in there. Itchy and all the wrong. Placeno cowboy made it through a season without a rash. Whether from fleas, mites, heat, or mystery, you were going to scratch. Bites showed up in rows. Behind the knees, along the waistband, down the spine. Some used ash as powder. Others rubbed in lard. The desperate tried chewing tobacco juice. The truly broken just ignored it. One cowhand covered his whole body in mud, let it dry, then peeled it off like a snakeskin. He said it worked. He also started talking to squirrels by week 5. What's that noise? The worst sound wasn't coyotes. It wasn't thunder. It was rustling. Soft, subtle, shifting rustling from inside the roll. You'd freeze, hold your breath, hope it was the wind. Then the sound would move. No man slept after that. Some jumped up, boots half on, gun in hand, swearing the roll had something in it. Others dragged their blankets 10 feet from camp and slept under the stars. Better cold than crawling. Bedroll booby traps after enough bad nights. Cowboys got creative. Some lined their rolls with dry brush. The idea was that if something crawled in, it'd make a sound. Others stitched tin buttons to the seams, claiming it confused spiders. One even tied a bell to the flap. It rang once, just once, and he threw the whole roll into the river. He said he slept better after that. Coming up next, in part 4, we wrap it all up, literally. We look how bedrolls were packed, why some cowboys added salt, and the final fate of rolls to far gone, burned, buried, or passed along to the next poor soul, because in the Wild West, even your bed could turn against you. And sometimes it did. Part 4, burn it or carry it. The final fate of a cowboy's bedroll be the end of the trail. Your bedroll wasn't just a piece of gear, it was part of your legend. It smelled like every camp you'd ever slept in. It creaked when it moved, left behind dust when you shook it, and may or may not have still been home to something with legs. But still, you kept it. Because out there, comfort didn't mean clean, it meant yours. But even cowboys had limits, and every bedroll had a final ride. How you packed it mattered. Rolling a bedroll was an art form. Some cowboys rolled tight, tying with a single leather strap. Others folded it loose, hoping the air might scare out the bugs. One old hand folded his inside out, saying it kept the biters guessing. There were layers, blanket, spare shirt, maybe a stolen biscuit or a rock that somehow made it home. Most rolls weighed 10 to 15 pounds. Some were heavier, especially if they'd absorbed 5 straight nights of prairie fog. And whatever you packed inside, better hope it didn't crawl out mid-ride. Salt, smoke, and strange superstitions still keep the creepies out. Cowboys got creative. Salt was sprinkled in seams, believed to dry out unwanted visitors. Some rubbed their rolls with garlic. Others smoked theirs over sage or pine, letting the scent sink into every inch of fabric. A few even placed small charms or bones under the flap for protection. Did it help? Probably not. But it gave them something to believe in when the scratching started around midnight. And belief is a powerful thing, especially when the only thing between you and the dirt is a questionable pile of moldy wool. When it was time to let go eventually, every cowboy reached the breaking point. Maybe it was the night he woke up with his hat chewed through. Maybe it was the time something hissed from the bottom layer. Or maybe he just got tired of the smell haunting his dreams. When that moment came, he had three choices: burn it, usually in silence, maybe with a whispered insult. Bury it, folded neatly under a tree like a fallen comrade. Give it away, usually to a greenhorn who still believed in laundry. The brave tried to salvage it with soap and river water. The wise just walked away. Hand-me-down horror stories used bedrolls were the stuff of campfire legend. That one belonged to Billy Scratcher McGee, someone would say. He survived for winters in that thing, and so did the fleas. Second-hand rolls came with history, and smells, and sometimes sounds. Some were traded for gear. Others were left behind in bunkhouses, waiting like haunted treasures. The smart cowboys checked the seams. The smarter ones ran the other way. The bedroll that wouldn't. There's a story told all across the old trails of a bedroll so infested it walked on its own. They say it twitched in the night, that it made clicking sounds. That one rider rolled it up, strapped it to his saddle, and found it missing the next morning. No one knows where it went, but sometimes when the wind howls just right, you can hear something rustling and scratching and waiting to be unrolled again. The Cowboy and his bedroll, a love-hate story in the end. The cowboy didn't like his bedroll, but he needed it. It was a place to collapse after 14 hours of dust, heat, and hooves. A place where your body remembered every bruise, and something inside remembered every bite. It was disgusting. It was reliable. It was his dot and out there, on the edge of nowhere. That was enough. Because in the Wild West, your bed didn't promise comfort. It just promised that whatever crawled in with you might not crawl out.